We're still continuing our discussion of chapter 16 here, and we're still looking at things that are associated with the glycolytic pathway, but we're kind of looking at an aside for these. We're looking somewhere after the process of glycolysis has happened, but we're thinking about moving into other steps. So here what we're going to look at is we have this pyruvate that's created. So what are the fates of that pyruvate molecule? And there are 3 separate fates of the pyruvate that's created through the process of glycolysis. 2 of these are going to be under anaerobic conditions, so in the absence of oxygen, while the other is going to be under aerobic conditions. So under anaerobic conditions, pyruvate can undergo lactic acid fermentation to form lactate. It can undergo alcoholic fermentation to produce ethanol. So there are 2 of the processes that occur. Now in aerobic conditions, pyruvate is going to be converted to acetyl-CoA, and then the acetyl-CoA will enter the Krebs cycle and undergo further oxidation. And it's future chapters where we'll explore in more detail that Krebs cycle process. So just looking briefly at alcohol fermentation, we have our pyruvate. Our pyruvate is going to be converted to the acetaldehyde through this pyruvate decarboxylase. Then it's going to go from this acetaldehyde to ethanol through alcohol dehydrogenase. And so in the process of alcohol fermentation, we see the overall reaction down here where we're starting with glucose and we're producing ethanol in that overall process. And we are also creating ATP here, but this is the net equation when we're looking at alcohol fermentation. And these are the reactions that allow us to take that pyruvate and convert it to ethanol. So it's a 2-step process to do so, and there are 2 enzymes involved. Now here we have the lactic acid fermentation. In the lactic acid fermentation, our overall equation is shown down here, where we have our glucose being converted to that lactate. We also have ATP, a net ATP production. But here, it's just 1 step. Our pyruvate is converted to lactate using this lactate dehydrogenase enzyme. Now there are other fermentation processes that exist. The alcohol fermentation and the lactic acid fermentation are the ones that are more common or we more often look at, but there are other types of fermentation depending on the process that we're looking at. And so this just highlights some of those starting and end points of various fermentation processes. So we can see here this glucose, that's to lactate, that's our lactic acid fermentation, and the glucose to ethanol is our alcohol fermentation, but other processes do exist. So again, this was just to show you the different fates. We have that pyruvate molecule. What do we do with them? Under anaerobic conditions, fermentation is going to happen. Under aerobic conditions, not much at this point that we're going to talk about in any detail because that's a future chapter, but aerobic conditions, we make the acetyl-CoA, which is going to enter the Krebs cycle and get us even more energy.